Sure. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it falls to me to wrap up our conversation, our discussions over the course of today, and to try and draw together some of the strands of what I'm sure you'll agree has been a very rich and challenging set of conversations over the course of the day. Before I do that, I just want to offer a few words of thanks to a variety of people who have helped us in planning and delivering today's conference. And this echoes the thanks that my colleague Dave provided in his opening remarks this morning. Firstly, a huge thank you to President Higgins for taking the time to join us and to deliver such a wide-ranging and inspiring speech this morning. And we were honoured by, we here at DCU were honoured by his presence, and I hope that you got a lot out of it. I'd like to thank all of our panellists, speakers, and moderators throughout the day who provided such rich conversations on a variety of topics. I'd like to thank our colleagues in Deloitte, CEO Harry Goddard, who we heard from this morning, Laura Wadding, who we heard from in the business panel, Aoife, Mary, Paul, Sinead, and all of their colleagues, Mark, all of their colleagues who have helped us in establishing this partnership and have helped us with the setup of the centre and in planning for today's conference. We have a fantastic team of people in the centre. Dave mentioned our colleague Stephanie MacDonald, who was pivotal to the planning of the conference and who is, as Dave mentioned this morning, away on a curling trip. I don't know, Dave, have there been any updates during the course of the day on their exploits? But we will continue to follow them with great interest and hope. Brenda McNally, Sive O'Neill, Marta Carrasco have been invaluable in the run-up to and over the course of today. Brenda was marshalling our excellent team of student volunteers. Marta was up and down to the podium about 1 million times over the course of today. That we had, as I'm sure you noticed, some technical issues with the laptop. Marta, thank you very much for your help with that. Sive has been tweeting about the conference over the course of today. I haven't had a chance to look at many of those, but I'll look forward to looking back on them as a kind of record of some of our discussions over the course of today. Thanks also to our student and graduate volunteers who helped throughout the day with the registration desks, with the roving mics, and with other tasks. A range of other colleagues across DCU in our President's Office, Teresa, Natalie and Claire in the Educational Trust, Jason and Sinead, and in our comms team, Emer, Stephen and Katie have been, again, a huge help to us over the last weeks in planning and delivering today's conference. The staff here on the St. Pat's campus in the estates team, Brian and his colleagues, and the catering staff, Michelle and her colleagues, for making us feel so welcome and for looking after us so well over the course of the day. And my colleagues, my own colleagues in the Centre for Climate and Society, my co-directors, Pat and Dave, and all of the centre members. I couldn't ask for a better group of colleagues, and I'm really looking forward to developing our work together over the coming years in the context of the Centre for Climate and Society. So today is a milestone. It's a celebration of the launch of the Centre, but I think for us here in DCU, it's also a chance for reflection for where we have come from and where we are headed. And if I reflect on my own journey, I joined DCU back in August 2014, about 8.5 years ago. And back at that point, so a couple of weeks ago, we had the first in-person meeting of the members of the Centre for Climate and Society, the research staff who are engaged in this research agenda with us. And it was a really exciting day to all get together in person. And as I looked around the room, I realized that actually the only person that preceded me, I think I'm correct in saying, as a staff member in DCU was actually you, Pat. And that, I think, speaks to the expansion of our cohort of staff in DCU working on this critical global challenge. Then in 2017, we started the discussions that led to the Masters in Climate Change. In September 2018, we had the first intake of students on that Masters in Climate Change. In 2019, we had a first conference, a smaller version of this. Last year, my colleague Darren Clark established our BA in Climate Change and Environmental Sustainability, and of course, last year and into today, we have established the Centre for Climate and Society. So there's real, I think, momentum to this. But as I kind of charted out those milestones in that journey, I was struck by how many of the milestones related to our students. And I wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge our students and now our graduates. It's really gratifying for Pat, Dave, Trish, Declan, other colleagues teaching on the Masters in Climate Change to see those students turning into graduates. We had a wonderful ceremony just in March this year. It was the first in-person graduation of students from our Masters in Climate Change. And every time I go onto LinkedIn or Twitter, I see the great work that those graduates and students indeed are going on to do. And I think that's core to what we do in DCU. Research, engagement, and teaching are all central elements of what we do, but we are incredibly proud. I think I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues when I say we're incredibly proud of our students and graduates. And it was lovely to see so many of them here today, and all the way from students who enrolled in that September 2018 cohort. So there were a number of graduates from that class back with us today, having a kind of a class reunion, all the way up to our first and second year students who are currently enrolled in the programme. And it's great to see that network of students and graduates growing over the years. And we are going to be taking steps in the coming weeks to set up an alumni network. Once I have time to draw breath tomorrow, I'm going to be in touch with all of the students and graduates about that. And we look forward indeed to welcoming some of those graduates who missed out on in-person graduations in March 2020 and 2021 back to a kind of a catch-up graduation celebration on the 9th of June. But of course, there's also a parallel timeline to that timeline that I laid out, internal to us here in DCU, and it comes to that question of urgency and the fact that the clock is ticking on our climate transition. So alongside that DCU timeline, we had the IPCC 1.5 degree report in October 2018. We had the emergence of Greta Thunberg and then the school strikes movement. We had at national level the Citizens' Assembly that Sharon Finnegan talked about earlier. We had the first climate action plan in 2019. We had the revision of the climate law in 2021, and the most recent assessment report from the IPCC. And going back further in time, President Higgins this morning referenced the UN Conference on Environment and Development in 1992, 30 years ago, and indeed going further back, the UN Conference on the Human Environment, the Stockholm Conference in 1972, of which we will mark 50 years this year. So a lot of time has elapsed, and that time, unfortunately, is running short. And that question of urgency is something that I think came through across all of our panels and in President Higgins's keynote speech today. And in a way, I think it still feels to me like we're almost still at the starting line or close to the starting line. And I think we heard echoes of that in the business panel and also in the policy panel. So time is not on our side, but we need to, I think, work together, and we hope that the Centre for Climate and Society will provide a space for those challenging conversations that we can have to encourage each other to go further. In terms of common threads across the different panels, I think that question of accountability came through really strongly, particularly in the business panel and in the policy panel. We have the targets, we have the pledges, we need to move on with implementation and holding each other to account. Communications obviously came through very strongly in the first panel, but it also, I think, permeated the discussions on the other two panels, particularly the policy panel. And as I'm sure, if you take nothing else away from today, you'll know that communications is central to our work plan in the Centre for Climate and Society over the coming years. Another theme that I picked out from across the panel was the area of justice, inequality, just transition, climate justice. That came through, I think, very strongly in the policy panel. It also came very, very strongly through in President Higgins's address, and that's an agenda that we will continue to work on in our work in the Centre. So it has, I think, been a day of challenging discussions, and our hope in setting up the Centre is that the Centre will be an opportunity to have those challenging discussions and to continue them into the future. And so we hope that all of you who joined us today and the wider Irish climate and environmental sector will keep in touch with our work. You can sign up for updates through our regular newsletter on the Centre website, dcu.ie/climate. You can follow us on Twitter. The handle is at DCU Climate. And we would also like to keep in touch with you and to keep these discussions going. And so if you have feedback or thoughts or suggestions on our research agenda, on the proceedings of today, please feel free to reach out to us to get in touch. And I think I speak on behalf of all my colleagues when I say that we look forward to working with you all in various capacities over the coming years to shape and drive forward Ireland's climate transition. Finally, I would like to invite you all to join us outside in the atrium area immediately after this for the launch of my colleague Pat Brereton's new book, An A to Z Guide on Essential Concepts of Environmental Communication. It's happening in the area where we had our coffee breaks today. Pat is a very dear but also a very modest colleague, and he wouldn't want me making a fuss about him or about the book. But we do want to celebrate his contribution to the field and the occasion of the publication of his new book. So we hope you'll all join us outside in that celebration. So thank you very much and good evening.